architects are so slow to advance. And I think you guys can probably agree, and we can talk about that. There is better ways out there to doing, when it comes to construction administration, of course, even all the things that we do leading up to that point where basically the job is given over to you in that respect. We're in a very ever-evolving, changing world right now. AI is right there at the forefront. How can we use that? It's not going to take our jobs. You still have to be the guy doing it. But I like the example. I like to kind of, when people are scared of it, it's like, well, we can both build a house with a hammer, but we can also build it a lot quicker with a nailer, right? And I think that's kind of, at the end of the day, if we can kind of utilize today's technology, we're there. I feel like the GC side, you guys have been rocking it. You guys are advancing. You're using tools day to day. Things are moving. From the architectural point, we've been kind of flatlining it for the last, almost 2 decades in a sense, other than emails and faxing, all those. And Revit was a new kind of game changer. Nothing's really truly changed in terms of the process.
Why do you think that is? Like, what's the personality or like, what's the ingredient that makes it kind of hard for the architectural community to move as fast as you maybe are saying they should try?
Let's go back in time here and kind of look at a couple, like literally evidence and the data and stuff. Like, been in the industry for 22 years. I finished school, got into architecture. I didn't really land too well with too many great firms. I had one firm that couldn't pay us on time. The next thing you know, the lights were being turned off. That was a story on its own. But so at the point, I took a kind of a little side quest and I became an Autodesk reseller. And I started, and that was right when Revit was just purchased by Autodesk. So I was using Revit before it got purchased, then when it was, and then I was starting to sell it. I did that for about 4 years in the industry. So being here in Vancouver, BC, I was an early adopter. I actually bought a license for myself for my own personal practice and using it day to day. And it was an incredible tool. And when you went to these demos and kind of showcased it to, these architects, these guys doing it, in that, half an hour of having that conversation, talking about, why we're from AutoCAD days to Revit. And at the end of that session, you would have this amazing little project built right in front of them. And then you pull out the wild card being like, oh, client wants a change. It's Friday at 5:00. I want to go home, but we're going to move this wall up, move the window. Boom, everything was done, right? And instantaneous. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. This is the next big thing. All right, ready to sign? No. What do you mean, no? Like, your competitors are going to overtake you. And we actually met with people in that sense. And it's just such a slow industry. It's the same thing if we even go back in time. We look at AutoCAD. That was such a slow process to go from hand drafting and that. And I don't know why change is so hard in the industry. I was very fortunate to work at a firm where they did believe in ideas where, like me personally, I love tech. I really do. I embrace it. I do. And I do look at the ROIs. Is this worth it? So like we were bringing drones to sites in the early days where, before you applied a license, you had to write out a whole freaking report of why you weren't going to crash. And if you did, who would you kill? All these crazy kind of analogies. But we used it in such a great way to basically model the site, to cut and fills in advance. When we were given pricing for extras we had to bring so many trucks in, we would use that technology. It was a great firm to work with, but so many, they would just look at you, and it's like, I'll tell you how to do it, but it's that adoption of taking that step. And it's scary. Change is scary. I hate change, but I feel like life is always changing and you just got to go with it. Once you get comfortable, that's when change happens.
So I'll add in here because I've stepped into some architecture offices over the years, and I have seen how in a lot of these offices they have like still the physical models out on tables, showing them off. They even have hand sketches out there. I watched a guy who it was incredible to watch him. He sat there and he was hand sketching this home on this hill, and it was like really, really pretty, and like I loved that. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, maybe that's the reason they don't want to adopt some of this new stuff, is because they came into architecture more from an artistic bend. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the reason why they don't want to adopt new technologies. They feel like it's separating them from the tools that they're used to, that they feel that they can express themselves with. Do you feel like that's the case? Are you seeing that a lot?
In some On some level, yes.
Okay.
But the same thing, like the sketching, like I still sketch, right? You know,
Yeah,
always.
right.
I handwrite my notes too, but I digitize them because there is a connection. And I had one principal I worked with who basically that's how he explained it. He called us in because he was getting so sick and tired of the drawings going out and, you know, extras and all that kind of stuff. And he basically rolled out a piece of trace and he just started drawing. And he's like, as I connect to the page, I'm physically building that wall in my mind. And it's true, right? Like it's when you have that touch element, there's a lot of power to it. And I'm finding with like the new generation that's coming in, you know, they're great on the computer, click, 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 but they have no clue what they're doing. But kind of going back to that point there, Tyler, like that's still an art. And I hope that never dies. You know what I mean? You should still be sketching. You should be exercising that muscle memory in that respect. It's even goes back to the days of like when we had CDs in the car. I had all these lovely Napster CDs that I would put in and you knew what track they were.
Right.
You knew what track 13 of that Finger 11 album or whatever the case is. You knew all those tracks. And now with the digital world, it's not resonating. It's not sticking to. So hand drawing is, again, that touchy feeling thing's really important. I think it's, like I said, it's the whole attitude of that's how we've done it before. That's how we've always done it. Well, that's nice. Again, when they invented the nailer, guys were framing houses, you know, tenfold.
Art art changes over time too. Like we're seeing that shift where it used to be a paint and paintbrush, now it's Illustrator. You know,
Yes.
And new stuff's coming out. And it's really interesting as a result of it. It's like we're using these tools and now the output is changing as a result of those tools, which is a really cool place for us to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can definitely feel like there's a little bit of a laggard mentality there of like, oh man, but I really like my pencils. These Blackwings are so great. Like, love these pencils to death, you know?
You really do.
I do love a Blackwing pencil, man. Those things are, shout out.
Yeah, that's
So good.
Right. Basically, it's the whole, you know, pause, pivot, unlearn, relearn, you know, that kind of attitude, right? And you can definitely, you know, change that goal. I don't know if they're teaching hand drafting in school days. They really should. Honestly, I feel like they should do it for at least a week. Because again, that whole pen to paper mentality, understanding what you're drawing, building that wall, you know, when you put that door, you're drawing that door, you're building the headers in there where you got that roof, those beams coming in, you're thinking about that, you're running the point loads, you know, all those things. It will make you a better architect, better designer, better coordinator, because you're doing all that conflict resolution right there in the design stage versus on site.